Hey, it's Jordan with the Young Turks, TYT Politics, back here in Flint, Michigan. I'm aware it's Sunday football, but I think we have some important business to discuss that's a little more important than the NFL games right now. So share the video, let's get it out there. So I just before this interviewed a mayor candidate. You might know him if you've watched us, Tony Palladino. But I think there's two things in Flint. There's the gentrification and destruction of the middle class, and then there's the water crisis. I think the two are connected. And I think the media, in large part, because if you cannot find a connection to Vladimir Putin or Donald Trump, there is nothing going on in this country. If you are MSNBC, CNN, the New York Times, the Associated Press, I could go on. But there's a lot going on in this country, and a lot going on in this country that frankly led to people getting frustrated enough that a reality TV star, used car salesman, is now our president. And one of those things is here in Flint. I'm not going to get too far into it, but there's been headlines the last few weeks. There's been scientific studies that came out that claim Flint is now considered within the normal range of lead for cities with old lead pipes. So I'm working on a story. It's mostly going to be a written story. I've been working on it for 3 weeks to a month now that puts that testing into question. But I wanted to talk to Bruce Steers. You have been living here since the 70s, I believe.
Yes.
And you pretty much helped build a lot of Flint in terms of, kind of engineering and
bricks and mortar.
Yeah, bricks and mortar. Tell the audience kind of what your profession has been and what kind of stuff you did here in Flint.
Well, I have 33 years background in building trades, union construction building trades, building wastewater treatment plants, water treatment plants, airports, hospitals, roads, bridges, expressways, putting in sewer lines, putting in water lines, tearing out water lines, putting in gas transcontinental pipelines, 780 miles worth of a pipeline from Sarnia, Canada to up through Bemidji, Minnesota. So in my background, I was fortunate enough to be exposed to an environment, working within environmental perimeters. A lot of times we had areas where we had, natural resources, sensitive, areas, rules that we had to, follow, occupy. All of these things come into a play. And so as a person in the industry and working throughout the industry, you're working with operating engineers, you're working with plumbers, you're working with electricians, you're working with the architects, you're working with the owners. You have a certain project and a goal in mind, and you have timelines and schedules, and things are bid out, and the contractors come in, and we do our utmost best to provide a service, and we have provided a service. And I want to give the kudos to the Building Trades and Building Trades Council. A lot of people have been talking a lot of shit about them at the Mackinac Center, but I want to tell you right now that it's the Building Trades members, the carpenters, the laborers, the plumbers, the operating engineers, the electricians. All these people are families, and we're all here in Flint too, just like in other cities. So I just want to let you know that my background comes from working with these engineering companies that are putting these blueprints before us. And now when we come to City of Flint, we're going to have to do some real soul searching on what the perimeters are. And so if I could just tell you, just for a quick hot shot second, that when the big shots came in the early 60s and put this water system that we have here in Flint, when they put it in, boy, it was state of the art, best in the world. There wasn't anything that stopped anybody from getting it in. They had the equipment, they had the trucks, they had the manpower, they had the money, they had the money, they had the money, they had the money. Now, they built the system up to 300,000 people because the city of Flint is the second. A lot of people don't realize this in the United States, but in the state of Michigan, city of Flint is the second largest city in the state of Michigan, and that's no small effort. We take pride in being the second largest city, and we take pride in the fact that for over 80 years we produced almost 1 million vehicles a year. And we take pride in the fact that our schools graduated the kids that they did and who went on to be successful people throughout this whole venture. And so I'm not going to buy into the fact 1 ounce and iota that the city of Flint can't get its way up out of this, what's going on. I do see that we have some challenges ahead. I see that the government has to create some linkages that aren't there. One of them, common sense, would be a good thing. Okay.
Not just in Flint, but across America.
Amen. Amen. And so, you know, we have a time period in which we have to operate here. And I'm just going to go back and in the city of Flint. The city of Flint has 600 miles of pipe to support 300,000 residents. It never made 300,000 residents. Imagine that, okay? Now, the people that put this design plan in motion were people that designed some of the first subdivisions in America. Were designed right here in Flint. A lot of people don't know that. Again, General Motors. General Motors had a plan of where they wanted to put their workers. We used to live in shanty towns. It was all up and down Saginaw Street. Tar paper shacks for years is what people lived in that worked in these shops until they got money to buy property. You'll see a lot of the smaller houses that are built in the areas. You'll see the east side, and you'll see all areas. You can almost tell predominantly in the age of the housing by how much money was available by the sizes of the houses. Now, the sizes of the houses here in Flint are comparable to the sizes of the houses in Detroit.
Which is the largest city.
Correct. So the families that were occupied the houses in the city of Detroit, 5 and 6, 7, bedroom houses that they had, and brick houses, boy, in the heyday, everybody seemed to have enough money to be able to accommodate building those houses, and we built them. All right. Now, then the 60s came up and civil rights came up, and everybody said, well, we got to have a Fair Housing Act because, people aren't giving other people the fair shake. And so how are we going to eliminate these pockets of poverty that we've built over the past, from 1920s on up into the 60s? And so we had some great activists going on. We had some great engineers at work. Those engineers here in Flint made Flint a world-renowned infrastructure for its water system. So how do we go from world-renowned to a piece of shit? Okay? So 60 years, the city of Flint has been pumping its water from Lake Huron without a hitch. In that 60-year period of time, there's a lot of developments that went on with the factories that were here in the city of Flint.
Including General Motors.
General Motors, okay? And General Motors was our lifeblood, our lifeline. It was the heart of the city. There's no getting around. The truth of the matter is that when General Motors says Flint is a General Motors town, what they really mean is that it's owned. Okay? It's not shared. Okay? And that's where General Motors lost the validity here, is because they took their ownership instead of sharing with the wealth and everything that built General Motors, which was the people that were here. No, it didn't happen that way. So I'm going to say to you that engineering, mechanical engineers, we've got some of the world's best mechanical engineers right here in Flint.
So, with that said, without getting into attacks or anything like that, there are certain experts right now saying that Flint, based on the testing that has been done, is, quote, normal, and the water is back to normal range, according to what the EPA says is normal, compared to other cities with old lead pipes, based on the fact that you know this infrastructure backwards and forwards, based on the fact that you were witness to how this city was built, and based on the fact that you and a lot of people, I probably at this point interviewed hundreds of people here, were affected by this water switch. What do you think? Flint's water is back to normal, which would imply the crisis is over.
The water is not back to normal. I mean, it's not back to normal. I mean, and it's not the water chemistry here in the homes is so, it's like a roller coaster. We got a high side over here, and all of a sudden we got a dip. And then we got another curve, and we got a roll, and then we got a couple turnovers. And then by the time you get right back to the system, how many houses are you going to go in and test for on a continuous basis? Because we do not have a continuous testing, monitoring going on, we have no way to adequately gauge the amount of contaminations that we actually are going through. And so the people in the neighborhoods are the biggest voices. And when the people in the neighborhood come up to you and they say, this is what come out of my tap yesterday, they're not telling you a story. That's what came out of their tap. And if it looks like it's something that was dug up out of the mud puddle or out of the Flint River, then it's probably not, it's just not healthy. And so to say to that person, well, to start putting doubt on that person, to say, well, they're not honest. They're trying to do something here. They're trying to pull a fast one here. Nobody in Flint is trying to pull a fast one except the state of Michigan. I'll make that perfectly clear, Jordan. Okay? Mr. Edwards coming in here, bless his heart. Love you, Mr. Edwards, but man, oh man, as soon as them dollar signs went on, cha-ching, that whole tone changed.
Let me just tell the audience who you're referring to. So, Dr. Mark Edwards, who's a scientist with Virginia Tech, he was credited with first identifying the high lead levels here in Flint. After that, he actually testified in front of Congress, actually criticizing the EPA in March 2016, that they basically didn't do enough here with the crisis in identifying that there was a problem and listening to residents, all that. Soon after that, I've confirmed that the EPA has given him and Virginia Tech $168,000 in grant money. That's from the EPA. He's also received hundreds of thousands of dollars from the Mott Foundation, which is a local foundation here, as well as other sources. And a lot of residents like Bruce feel that his tune definitely changed to be closer to what the EPA would like the findings to be after that money came in.
And on that note, I want to reiterate, the DEQ here authorized the
Department of Environmental Quality. That's the state of Michigan's environmental. So EPA is federal, DEQ state.
They authorized the use of the Flint River without corrosive control protection. The DEQ. They are like the echelon. They are like the police. They are like the National Guard. They are like the Coast Guard. Okay? So the DEQ says, all right, go ahead. You don't need corrosion control. Your city's only 60,000 people, so under the guidelines of 60,000 people, you won't have to put in the extra that you're going to if you were, say, supplying 100,000 people. Now that came in from a...
Could you explain to the audience why it's such a big deal that the actual pipes are meant for 300,000 people, but you only have about little less than 100,000 now? Why does that add to water contamination?
Okay, because the pipes that are here, it takes about 2 weeks to fill the 600 miles of pipes in the infrastructure, and it takes about 2 hours for that then between where you're at in the neighborhood to 2 weeks to reach your tap. So the people whose taps the water reaches within 2 hours, they're pretty much on the up and up with the chlorination, with the water treatment. The chemistry is, pretty safe. All right, and I'm going to say that the chemistry is within the guidelines of the federal government, which is not always the safest, but it is within the guidelines. However, those other people that are drinking the water who it took 2 weeks to get to their taps, now the chlorine has evaporated. Now you have stagnant, stale water. So it's like blending. And so now instead of getting the quality water that the first customer got, you're getting the tail end of the pipe, which is the worst end of the water. And in that worst end of the water, Jordan, is where the bacteria are coming from.
Wait, you mean the bacteria that the state of Michigan, that the EPA, and that Mark Edwards is not thoroughly testing for?
Correct. Absolutely. And they don't have to test for them because the state says, well, we're not required to. And I say to that there are laws that require us to drive 55 and not 95. So if we wanted to change that law, we changed the law. And so we need to change the law to associate to the bacteria that are known pathogens that are in our water systems that weren't present 60 years ago. Okay? Not that they weren't present, but not in the numbers that they are. One of the number one pollutants of our waterways right now are the pharmaceutical manufacturing companies. Okay? And there is more opiates in our water and in our water streams. It's a serious problem. Scientifically, no, it doesn't make the weekly reader journals and the papers that are going around, but in the national science reports it sure is.
So you're saying that pharmaceutical companies are dumping their waste from manufacturing?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so the water quality and treatment systems and things that are going, and not only that, when people are flushing, okay, they're told, take your old medicine and flush it down the toilet. Okay? Do you know what that's doing to our environment? It's insane. It's insane. It makes about as much sense as when the water first came up as an alarm here in the city of Flint said, boil your water. Well, under a lead advisory warning, that is the last thing that you would want to issue as an emergency declaration for your people to do, because it exasperated the amount of lead to concentrate the lead down to a central point in the water, and the steam and the vapor being carried off, just like a candle wicks from China. When the candle wicks from China were being dipped in lead and imported here to the United States, the amount of lead that was being put off into the air by that wick was sufficient enough to cause illness to people. We found the wick was the problem. What did we do? We eliminated the problem by telling China, we're not going to accept any more of your poisonous candles. Okay?
But this was before the banks wrote multinational trade deals.
I am saying to you that in this country, okay, certain aspects, lead, okay, a lipstick, for instance, hot lipsticks that women, and we're a fashion country, and so we just go nuts, and our, people just love fashion, and okay, but the lipsticks that are coming in having lead products in them and being bogus, they're being copycats, okay, of good products. Mm-hmm. Well, they're contaminated with lead. Lead poisoning, okay, comes in all sensitivities and all kinds of forms. Here in Flint, Michigan, lead became the issue because of the release of the lead solder due to lack of corrosion control practices, water chemistry, period.
Laura says my water currently smells like a combination of sewage and wet dog today. This is the water that they're saying is now within normal ranges for lead. She's saying today, my water smells like a combination of sewage and wet dog.
Anybody ever smell sewage and wet dog? You ever had your sewer back up in your basement, get up in the middle of the night and say, oh my Lord, what is that smell? The first thing you do, what do? You call down the city and you say, hey, we got a problem here. Your sewer's backing up into my drains in my basement. And what do they say? Well, you must have drain clogs with roots in them, so it's your responsibility. From the curb to the road is your responsibility. Excuse me. Okay, the sewers and the backups and the water and the quality and, in terms of people for stench, people recognize things by taste, by odor, okay? If something smells good, hey, it smells good. If it smells bad, it smells bad, okay? Our water is not supposed to smell bad, All right. A lot of people will associate the sulfur water with the water because of high mineral contents, low water quality in the areas where they are. Municipal wells, for instance, down in Oakland County, municipal wells, they have a serious problem with all of this. Here in Flint, our only problem here in the city of Flint was the age of our infrastructure. Okay? The age of the infrastructure and the size of the infrastructure. When you take 300,000 people, let's take 300,000 toilets, okay, to fill 300,000 tanks in the toilets. Now we're going to flush the toilets, all right? That takes a lot of money. It takes a lot of push. You got to have a lot of water. It's got to come from somewhere. It's got to go someplace, doesn't it? Okay? So here in this country, we have sanitary sewers. We've adopted. We don't, crap in our rivers. We don't, we don't, dump our industrial waste in our rivers. A lot of countries do.
Actually, you're incorrect about that. We do dump our industrial
Thank
waste
you.
in our rivers.
Thank
go
you.
to Indiana, go to the Flint
Thank
River.
you. Thank you. Thank you. Because you are correct, okay? But I'm saying that we, okay, you and I, we do not, okay? I don't go.
I have peed in a river from time to time.
I don't go down to my local drain and dump, 500 gallons of old paint or gasoline or something just to get rid of it, okay? And we've got people that have been doing that around here for years. So we've got an incident right now in the Flint River, okay, where we've got some metal from metal plating processes that are going on. So all of this boils down to this one thing. Are the people of the city of Flint healthy? No. Why? Because of water-borne illnesses. Now, the narrative of Mayor Weaver was and has been and still is, all monies coming into the city should go through and to the foundations. The foundations then divvy out between themselves $600 and some million. And then they say that the children 0 to 6 years old within the city of Flint are going to have lifetime medical care. They're going to have a special school that they can go to. I disagree with this special school. I think that those kids ought to be allowed to go to a regular, normal school just like any other kid in America. And it doesn't matter that they've been lead poisoned or not. They are mentally handicapped. So what? You did it. Deal with it. We're going to have to deal with these children now. It's our responsibility. You won't take the responsibility. We do take the responsibility very seriously. Okay? So let me be perfectly clear. The people that are involved in Flint and advocating for the people of Flint take their children's health very seriously. We're not in the spotlight. We're not in Hollywood. We're not getting awards or accolades, and we're not asking for that. But we are asking for safety for our children for the next 35 years. In order to get to that point, we're going to have to do some things that are unfriendly to the government.
Can I just point out, before I ask my next question, I've seen some scary shit over the last 2 years. I've seen police officers tear gassing people. I've seen, I just got arrested for doing journalism. Most things don't scare me, not because I'm brave, but I'm probably just stupid. This man and his face just now scared the living bejesus out of me. And the reason I say that is because when government shits on its people, when government poisons its people, when government basically allows genocide of its people, people get angry. That's how you get fascists elected to office, which I think we're seeing right now. People get angry and they take actions into their own hands. I'm not calling for any violence, but the people of Flint are rightly angry because they're being, there's the government story and the EPA story that things are just hunky-dory, and then there's people on the ground who know that is propaganda bullshit. So I think what Bruce was just saying reflects a lot of the feeling here. They are living it. They smell their water. Somebody just said it smells like a wet dog and chlorine. Or people who are still telling me they get discolored water. But if your testing only looks at certain homes, if your testing looks at homes that might have not been that old, if your testing looks at homes that weren't hit the hardest as opposed to other areas, you could find whatever the hell you want to find. Sorry for that.
I want to, again, I'm going to step up and say the people of the city, citizens in the city of Flint. I have heard people from college degree and with very, very good amounts of education. I have heard them make the most ridiculous comments about the people of the city of Flint.
Give me an example.
They're too dumb to know how to treat their own damn water. They're too stupid to know how to run their own water plant.
Well, last time I checked, the Michigan Department of Environmental Quality, which are supposed to be the brainiacs, were the ones that poisoned you.
Thank you. So my comment to that was and is, with all the money that's coming in here, how come nobody's put a program together to train water treatment operators? We could train water treatment operators and send them all over the United States of America and the world. Okay, how come nobody's doing that here? How come in all the education and all the funding that's going on, there's no programs to empower and lift people into the system rather than shuttling them into a corner? Have you ever been to a stock market? Okay, so then you know when cattle come in, they come in cars and they go down the chutes and then they go out in the areas and they,
Oh, I thought you were talking about Wall Street.
I'm sorry. Well, okay, well,
Yeah.
that's basically here in Flint, okay? As long as you're willing to be part of the herd and get in that and stay in that herd and don't get out of line, don't step out of that, don't stampede for your own self, okay? You're going to get cabbage, carrots, apples, and oranges. You're going to get given a list of where all the food giveaway places are. You're going to be given a list of where all the charity, okay, is taking to give you things that you obviously don't have, okay? So you got to take a look at what's being handed to the citizens of Flint. Okay, the citizens of Flint are very, very capable people. Anybody that can withstand the forces that have been up against these people over the past 3 years and still be standing, they deserve an award. The people of the city of Flint deserve to be recognized for their citizenship, for their democratic procedures, and for fighting for democracy for them, for their rights, for their children's rights. They ought to be recognized, but they're not. Not a word. Not a word from the president, the vice president, not even a word from any of their own elected representatives. Shame on you all. These people deserve your gratitude. They deserve your help. They need you. Lord knows I have gone to many churches here, and I have seen and witnessed many people come to the churches here seeking the support of these people to put you in the offices of high esteem that you hold. You have a duty, a due diligence. I don't feel that you are acting in accordance to the position of your office and the power of the authority that the office holds. I think that you're hiding. I think you're cowering. I think you're taking the easy road. And I think you need to come here and do the right thing, which is, as Mr. Dan Kildee said, you got to shrink that city and you got to shrink these cities that are out there and you got to shrink this blight. And I think he's right. You do have to shrink this city. You got to take the 600 miles of pipes and you got to put 300 miles of pipe that are worth something to make the system functional for the 90,000 people that you want to pay for it for the next 30 years. And if you're not willing to do that, then you need to step down.
Yes, sir.
All of you.
Bruce, I want to get into specifics here because big problem, like I said, the media just kind of regurgitates what certain scientists say is true. So we have reports now that the testing shows lead is under the allowable limit, and the testing says Flint is now back to normal ranges for lead. But lead isn't the only threat. Lead pipes are not the only threat, and that gets zero media attention. So what do we have here?
We have a galvanized, it looks like about 3 1/4 inch pipe, water pipe,
Tell the audience what's the difference in galvanized and lead.
The difference between galvanized and lead, that this has a zinc coating is in steel. Lead is a pure soft metal. The lead that's relevant, when we have the lead issues here, you have to be consistent with this. The corrosion and lack of corrosion created the dispersion of lead, okay, through the solder being washed out of the fittings in the people's homes. This is what gave the immense amount of lead spike through the city. The sediments that were pushed off the pipes from lack of corrosion control in the basement, if you would, underground, all of that sediment came up and into people's homes, and it's still there.
Wait. I just want to point out what Ty is looking at on the floor right now is the sediment that poured out of this pipe that I'm showing you. So that brown shit, I don't even know if it's brown. That stuff is from this pipe.
Don't let anybody tell you that that's a normal deposit of iron or a normal mineral deposit of hard water. That is city water.
But I want to be fair. So this pipe, Tony, this was taken out in 2015?
Yeah, right here.
Right. So this pipe was taken out in 2015 before they were adding, they added in the phosphates and all this stuff. So this pipe probably isn't the best example because it's not a recent pipe. However, there are galvanized pipes still in the system. Not all service line pipes are only lead. Most of them are lead, could be lead from the main in the street to the valve, and then from the valve, which is where they come to turn it off if you stop paying your water bill, from the valve to the actual home, a lot of them are galvanized. And galvanized is incredibly hard, and Mark Edwards, the Virginia Tech scientist, said that it's incredibly hard to recoat. Recoat meaning to basically stop lead from leaching. Because galvanized pipes have lead sponge to it. Am I getting that wrong?
No.
So, damn, that sounds smart. So, bottom line is, you could change the lead service lines, but if you're not changing the whole thing, and there are still galvanized pipes in the system, galvanized pipes in the system, the galvanized are still leaching lead.
Can I say something to that real quick?
Sure.
This
Come over closer.
This house was built in 1917. All these houses on this street and in this neighborhood are full of galvanized. No one's even talking about how much is that going to cost and who's going to pay that cost. See, you're talking about all the connections and everything that's going on. I'm going to get stuck with this pipe. Just like it used to be, the city was liable all the way to the house.
You're talking about the home, the pipes
the
in
home
the home
itself and all the other things that's damaged. No one's compensating me at all or my family. We had to suck through that. That's coming into our lives. That was put on us. They need to compensate and take care of it and make sure there's going to be more money needed. They got to have the plumbers in here.
But to be clear, the state and the city that are changing these service lines on the street, they're not changing the pipes in your home, which means even if the service lines are changed, if you still have really corroded pipes in your home, which were corroded further by the toxic Flint River water.
Mm-hmm. Now let's talk about the water heaters and the washing machines and the dishwashers and the shit that's still laying in there.
The city of Lansing, for 10 years, has been they've been going through a lead remediation program in their city, and it's taken about 10 years to change the lead service lines. Okay, and they changed the lead service lines without a water problem. If you follow what I'm saying, when I say that, I mean they didn't have any sudden splurge of crap go through their pipes. They didn't have a sudden a lack of corrosion control. Okay, they just knew that the pipes were lead, and that's not a good scenario. Okay, and there was funding available. There were jobs to be had. Listen to me. There was funding available, and there were jobs to be had. Operating engineers, plumbers, laborers, electricians, everybody, the gas company, everybody that's involved with anything in the underlayment of infrastructure. 10 years, okay, worth of funding meant that for 10 years, the workers were taking home a paycheck, and the city was receiving a new system, okay, without the abstract of lead in their service lines. Now here in Flint, the Register of Deeds office, okay, John Gleason's office, has a Register of Deeds that go well back in the 1800s. And on the Register of Deeds, right at the top, on the title of the library number of the property and description and so forth, is a little statement there about the service lines that connected from the street to the house, whether it was galvanized or lead. And it says right on it, galvanized or lead. It doesn't say galvanized and lead. It doesn't say all lead. It doesn't say all galvanized. It says galvanized or lead. It doesn't even say copper. It says galvanized or lead. Well, his office has probably 20,000 identifiers within the city of Flint. And when John Gleason went to the Mayor Weaver and said, I have a list of where the lead lines are and the galvanized lines are, you may want to take a look at it. She never gave him time of the day. None of her people gave him his office the time of the day about it. Now, I think that was a serious mistake, because right here within our own record keeping, within our own description, we have a person that can identify at least 15 to 20,000 lines immediately. We don't have to guess about them. And so the fast track, okay, you got 30,000 homes, let's say, that you're going to go through. Well, I'm telling you, you got 18 to 28 weeks, you know, to really attack the problem in the construction side of it, and that's with good weather. And the fast track program producing 900 to 2,000, I forget what it was, what the last number was, 2,300 within 3 years. Who are they kidding? In a construction industry, that wouldn't happen. With the building trades, and I'm saying this because you have the experts. You have expertise coming in. You have people that know what they're doing. You don't have unlicensed plumbers. You don't have unlicensed contractors. Just because Uncle Bob died, left you the backhoe, meant that you know how to drive a backhoe because you jumped on it for 5 minutes. Now you just went down and ripped up the gas line. You just cut through the fiber optic system. You shut down the hospital. You shut down the whole damn street. That's not progress. Okay? So what I'm saying here is this, that the city of Flint has had 3 years to show its initiative to get the job done. And they have failed horribly. The people are not getting the help, the delivery of services that the city owes them.
Yes, sir.
I want to get to the root of that, because you mentioned Lansing. Another place that did preemptive lead service line changes was Ann Arbor, Michigan, where Governor Snyder, I think, has an apartment or his house or who knows. I don't know about Lansing, but I do know Ann Arbor is a lot wealthier than Flint, mostly white folk. Lansing's probably wealthier than Flint. By the last number I saw, Flint's hovering between 42 and 50% poverty. I live on the Upper East Side of Manhattan. I don't live on Park Avenue, which is really bougie.
How far is Flint from Lansing?
About 40 minutes.
Okay. Do you know it took almost what was it, 18 months? No, how long did it take the governor to get from Lansing to here? About 18 months?
18 months. I think he was horse and carriage. Let's
Okay.
talk about that whole Ferguson.
I just want to point that out. Okay, that in another instance, and not to pick apples and oranges, but I guess maybe I should. The governor in Ohio. Okay, when he had a water emergency come up, boy, he was right on top of that stuff, and he said, whoa. He said, this is how we're going to do it, and this is how it's going to get done, and when it's going to get done. He issued the emergency, he issued the declarations, and he put the people to work, and he took care of it. He stepped in. He didn't step away from it. He didn't run away from it. He didn't hesitate for it. None of it. Okay? This governor here sat in his office and played patsy. He played a game of words. Well, what's the state say? I mean, what does the EPA say? What's the DEQ say? Well, they'll say whatever you want them to say, sir. Okay? What about the two people that he let go of right in the very beginning of this that nobody can get any edgewise of who they were. Okay, hits 2 aides. Well, I'm suggesting in my mind right now that the gentleman that came out and refuted what the governor said about his timeline on the Legionella here in Flint. Okay.
Harvey Harrison.
Yeah, he said, well, we had discussions in December. Okay, well, that kind of goes in line with the Clorox and the Myers supplying the filters. Okay, now that lineup took a phone call. That wasn't here in Flint. That was a phone call made from Lansing to California
To get filters.
to get
Flint.
filters lined up for the Flint pastors. Not Flint, the Flint pastors. Okay? And so this is where we come into the timelines of when the emails came through about the Legionella as far as being a very real concern here. The very first time it was mentioned, this gentleman is saying, I was an aide and I mentioned it to him in December.
Forget being a Flint citizen right now, just as an American citizen, when you grew up, I'm assuming you thought this was a democracy. I don't know what you think now. But is it important to you that Snyder be charged so that, in general, government becomes accountable again? Because if he's not charged with this new information, it's not going to just stop at Flint, Michigan. They're going to be able to do these things in other places with zero accountability.
Okay, first, I want to be the first to say this, all right? One, I'm a proud American. I'm with 336 other million proud Americans.
Yes, sir.
I've got a young lady. Served in the Navy. Aaron, I love you. I want to say that this people in this country are not unpatriotic. They're not undemocratic. They're not wild. They're not vigilant. They're not crazy. They're not full of shit. They're not somebody to be exterminated. We are the backbone. We are the foundation, like it or lump it. When we elect people, we don't always get the best people, Jordan. And sometimes that's just the way that democracy is going to work. But I would rather have democracy and put a goddamned asshole in office than I would to put a dictator and have him take away all of our freedoms.
Yes, sir.
Okay? At least I still have some freedom. And so many people in the world don't. And I'm so sick and tired of being people that are being put down because we're standing up. We were taught to stand up. We were taught to be Americans, that it was the right thing to do. What's the right thing to do? You go over to Europe and you set the whole country free. And you don't take no land. You don't take no homes. You don't take anything. You know, a couple wives. But you gave them their freedom, their liberty. When this country came over here and we did what we did to this land, it wasn't a good thing. I can't say I'm proud of it, but it's our history. And I'm not going to run away from my history. I'm not. And so when people come out and say that, you know, America, you got to grow up. America, you've had it easy too long. America, you this, and America, you that. Well, I'm going to tell you what. The rest of the world would be in a world of shit if it wasn't for America. Okay, and that's just the bottom line. Because there's no other nation on earth that stepped up to the plate to come to their aid. And like what we did, sacrificed our blood and our people. And in the Vietnam War, that was a stupid asinine war. But we went anyway. We didn't want to do the draft, but we went. A lot of people that served in the office went for deferments instead of joining the draft. No, they got 6, 7 deferments. And they ended up being president. So, you got me a little bit hackled up because I'm very proud American. And I served as a military cadet, ROTC, 3.5 years. I got up every morning, marched, put my uniform on and marched. I did it. I was only 10 years old. And I had a full-blown uniform, proud to go out in my cadet's uniform in this country. So I say to all the veterans, I love you. I love you more than you could ever possibly know. Because even though our freedom might be challenged, and even though our freedom might be questioned right now, it's because of you we got that freedom. And I'm not going to sit here and pat myself on the back and tell you all that I had a damn thing to do with it other than to say that I was there to witness what you did. And I can speak to what you did. And there's very few people in the world that can stand up and do what we do in this world that we live in today. And so we're going to stand, and we're going to have hard times, and we're going to have assholes, and we're going to have a Congress, and we're going to have a Senate, and we're going to have our lives, and we're going to have to get through it. I'm 61 years old. I've been a precinct delegate. I ran for state representative as a write-in candidate not because of my name, but because I thought it was the right thing to do. And when I didn't win, I went up and congratulated the people that did win, and I stayed on their butts the whole time they were in office to make sure that they did the things that I thought we needed to be done. So that's what it takes. We're here today. Jordan's here. I'm here. We're all taking our time. Nobody said, hey, here's a script, read this, it'll sound good, the people will love you for it. I don't give a damn about your script. You come out and you get on the camera and you tell it like it is. These people in this city are some of the strongest, proudest people in this country. And anybody that comes here and tries to make a buck off this sadness, shame on you. Shame on y'all. You got money in your back pockets because of what's going on here? Shame on you. Because the people that happen to don't have nothing. And even that's being taken away from them. So, we fight. And we stand. I stand with Mr. Palladino. I stand with Mr. Jordan. I stand with Mr. Ty. There's a lot of people I stand with. I told somebody the other day, it's hard to walk around on your knees. And so Mr. Snyder and Dan Kildee and Debbie Stabenow and Richard Baird. Richard, I know you was a lifelong resident here in Flint before you moved to Chicago. And I know you got a good reason to come here and try to do what you did. But I don't think that we need a person from Chicago telling us here in Flint that we should be a 30-year contract with anything connected to the water. I think that decision should come from somebody here in Flint. I do appreciate all the hundreds and thousands of hours that you put into it. Nobody here got paid to say any of this, and you got paid to say a lot of things, and I'm not begrudging you because you did a lot of work. You should get your $100,000 a year, but nobody here in the city of Flint's getting $100,000 a year. Matter of fact, we're being told to shut up. We're being told, go away. We're being told you don't know what you're talking about, but we do. We do. And so when I gave you that piece of pipe and I sat down there with my pictures, Rich, and we had that conversation, I trusted you and you trusted me. And I think in some small way I still have an honor of respect left, an ounce of it. But right now what I feel is this, that the pipes that are in these people's homes, when you said to me that you wouldn't let your dog lap water from the pipe that I gave you with the sediment that we're talking about here today, I thought you meant it. But then you said to me, prove to me that this was a result of the Flint River switch. And I tried to say to you, please have it analyzed what's in this pipe, because what's in this pipe is what's making the people sick. And all the clean water coming out of Detroit being pushed through this contaminated plumbing in these people's homes are what's continuously making them sick. We have to approach it from a public health threat standpoint. It has to be approached from that. Anybody with galvanized lines in their homes need to have their lines removed and replaced. We went and did a brief study on PEX, which is a plumbing used, you go to Home Depot. We did a little study. We came out with roughly about $3,700 to $5,000 per house to get rid of this crap per house. And so rather than saying, okay, everybody, you get a $5,000 check, I don't know what the situation is with people and their incomes, and I don't care. It shouldn't be income based. If you lived in the impact zone and you have this problem, you should be qualified for a grant program. The grant program should be coming from the state. It should be funded by the federal government. The grant program could be set up and should be set up exactly the same way Consumers Power set theirs up for themselves. I say Consumers Power, Michigan-owned company, Jackson High Consumers. When we go in and put new windows and new doors and new insulation, new furnaces, new water heaters and all that, we didn't have any problem with that. We came in and we did it under income-based programs. But listen, if you had a house and you needed that done to your house and you want to be participant of the program, it was a grant. And so on $7,000 worth of work, you were eligible to pay, depending on your income, no more than $1,700 and no less than $750. And you were able to pay that over 5 years at payments of $35 a month. Now, why they can't do that for the city of Flint in this particular instance for doing the remediation of this public health hazard is way to hell beyond my expertise of knowledge. But I asked Mr. Baird for this program, I asked him to discuss it, and I asked him for my pipes and my pictures back, which I've not gotten back yet. He told me, he said, Bruce, he said, if I could just hang on to them for a little while longer, because they really are making an impact there in Lansing with the people. They really are making an impact. And I called up and I talked to the secretary and I asked, beautiful woman, I said, this is Bruce and I'm just calling about my pipes and stuff. Is he done with them yet? And she said, well, I'm looking at the pipe, it's laying on his desk. Okay, so I haven't gotten it back. It's not that it's that important that I get it back, but I should not have to ask 5 or 6 times. And I should have gotten what I felt in my mind was a report. Okay, not a, hey, I'm busy. I should have seen a report from A to Z, everything that was in that pipe. Okay, a toxicology report of all the toxins in there. Okay, a carbon report. I want to know data, exactly, precisely, 100% to the last degree what's in that sediment. Because I believe what's in that sediment, if it's left in these pipes and people are forced to drink from them, they're going to die a lot sooner than what the natural course of their lives would be. And no, sir, I'm not going to be 61 years old and say, well, I knew something about it, and you know, what the hell with it. Nobody would listen to me, so I'm just done. Not doing it, haven't done it, not going to do it. And so you ask me to come here and speak. I'm more than willing to come here. And I'm not going to varnish it. I'm not going to paint, whitewash all over it. I'm not going to tie it up in a nice little bow for you either. Okay? You're doing the right thing. Okay? What we do 100 years from now, who knows? Somebody might just pick through this and say, hey, I know Ty. Yeah, he used to work for that with that Jordan guy. They ran all over the place, man. Look, I got a whole archive of his work. Okay? And it comes out that you're part of a solution. You know? We need to be part of the solution. We're so sick and tired of being part of the problem. Okay? So, one other, just quickly, if I can, for the city of Flint. The city of Flint has a poverty issue, unlike any other city in the United States of America. That's significant. I mean, just that itself, that statement. Okay. Oh, everybody's got poverty. No. We have poverty all across the world, all across this nation, but the average level of below poverty and people living below poverty in cities for the size of manufacturing complex that the city of Flint is, about 12 to 14% at the highest. Okay, here in Flint, it's 42% of the adults and 58% of the children. In the country, we're talking 14 and 12% on the average. So what we see is a good plan for the city of Flint is to bring infrastructure repair monies to try to put operating engineers, welders, electricians, to put apprenticeship cards in people's pockets, to get them working under prevailing wages, not poverty wages. Prevailing wages are about $18 to $24 an hour. We have training facilities throughout our state. We have about 60,000 people in our state that we put to work every year in construction. For the summer months, for winter months, we're at about 31,000 people. So we put about 31 to 33,000 people, okay, as temporary workers to build bridges, airports, to make the repairs to our roads. That's Michigan. That's the building trades. Okay, that's us. And now in the laborers, okay, as far as laborers go, you'll have like about 60,000 people throughout the whole state, okay, working through the summer, but only 30 through the winter. But the point that I'm making here is that the people that are working through the summer have adequate money. Now instead of $24,000 a year, we're talking $34,000 a year. Okay, now the $34,000 a year is important. Michigan prisons currently expend about $35,000 a year per prisoner to incarcerate a prisoner for the year. We here in Flint, we fill the prisons through a revolving door system of poverty based upon the 42% of the population that's forced to live under poverty. Now, 58% of our children living under poverty with all of the conditions of the foundations, with all the philanthropy, with all the kind-heartedness and all the United Way, and just look at all of these beautiful programs that we have here. The reason they're so beautiful is because there's a lot of money involved. But the reason the people are so poor is because it's not getting down to there where it needs to be. So, Mr. Palladino and I, and a lot of other people, thought it was a pretty good idea to make the switch from 58% of our children living in poverty to let's lower that to 12%. Let's take our 42% of adults living under poverty and let's knock that down to 12%. Let's do it within 10 years. 10 years. And we can turn this whole city on its ear for the positive good for the next 100 years. That's the key. Those are the keys that they don't want us to have.
Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.
I hope